And now we'll be taking a look at Outliner in Blender. Outliner gives you an outline of your 3D world, but it has other uses too. So let's see how we can use Outliner. Now the most basic use of our Outliner would be to simply select our objects, and we can simply left click on any object in this Outliner to select it in a 3D viewport. Now we can select multiple objects. Let's go ahead and duplicate some of these objects by pressing Shift D so we have more objects to work with. So we can click on one object, hold down Control, and click on multiple objects to select them, or we can select between 2 points. So if I click on this first cube, hold down Shift, and click on this cube 004, everything in between will be selected. You can rename your objects by simply double clicking and then typing in new names. For example, we can type in something like first cube. And a better way of doing this is that you simply select your object in the 3D viewport and then press F2 on your keyboard, and then you can type in the name here. So that's how you can sort of select and organize your scene. Now we can also create what are known as collections, and that's are sort of equivalent to folders on your computer to organize your scene better. By default we have this collection and everything sort of goes into that collection. Now to create new collections, you can either click on this icon at the top, or you can right click and then you can click on new collection. And one more way of doing that is in the 3D viewport. But let's just click on this icon here and it adds a collection too. Let's double click here and maybe type in something like cubes. And now to move our objects, we simply select them and then we can drag them into the collection. Now, if you want to create collection from your 3D viewport, I usually do it that way. So you select the objects that you want to move into the new collection, and then you press M key on your keyboard, and it's going to open up Move to Collection. You'll see the list of collections that you have in your 3D project, or you can create a new collection. In this case, we're just going to move it to the cubes collection, and all of those objects are going to move into that cubes collection. Now you'll notice that there's this gray box around our collection, so this tells you the active collection. Whichever collection is active, when you add new objects, those objects are going to be added to that collection. If I add something like a sphere, you can see how that's added there. But if I click on this icon at the top, and let's just add one more sphere, and you can see how that's added up there. And then we can also use this for accessing some additional functionality. For example, we can click on this icon here to enable certain filters like these. Now what that allows us to do is that the first option can be used to make some objects unselectable. So for example, if there are something in the background that I don't want to accidentally select when I drag select or when I'm selecting objects, I can just disable my selection for that, either for individual objects or an entire collection. So we can make it like this, and now if you make a selection, you can see that these cubes are not selectable. And then again, we can enable it really quickly. This is also good when you're using reference images, so you can make a collection for your reference images, and then you can make it unselectable so that you don't accidentally select your reference images. And then we have visibility, so we can toggle visibility very easily on and off. And another way to do this is, and I like to do it this way, is that you select your object and then you press H key on your keyboard and it hides the selected object. And again, you can do this for multiple objects. And then if you want to bring all of these back, you simply press Alt H and it's going to unhide all your objects. And one more way of doing this would be selecting the isolation mode. So when you have an object selected, you can press / on your keyboard, or you can also sort of press this / key on your numpad, and it's going to enter into the user perspective local view. But I like to call it isolation mode because that was a term familiar to me from 3ds Max. So that sort of hides everything, and you can work so it hides all those distracting things around your object, and you can freely work on your object, and then you can press that / key again and it unhides everything. So I prefer this over hiding objects sometimes. Next we have hide in the viewport, so this hides it in the viewport, and then this camera icon is going to hide it in rendering. So when you're finally rendering out images out of Blender and you want to hide these objects in that rendering, then you can use this camera icon. Right now it's not going to affect these objects really. I think we can test that. Okay, so if we go to render and render image, you can see that it's going to open up this new window, and this cube is visible and rendering happens through this camera. So if we select this object and hide that in rendering, then we can render our image again, and you can see that this cube is now hidden in our rendering, and there is a sphere inside that cube, so it's visible there. But this cube is visible in our viewport. If we want to hide that as well, then we can just click on this icon. So there's that sphere that we have in our render. So you can see that outliner can be really helpful. First, you can select your objects very easily. You can make your objects unselectable. You can hide them, show them really quickly and easily. You can create collections, and then using those collections, you can really organize your scene. So as you can see, that outliner has many different uses.